that's why I think for me right now, having lived here and experiencing the culture and seeing how the culture and the way people are raised here, how it affects society in terms of crime and the way the system works, things work here. So there's obviously something freaking good about it, and it should be celebrated.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today is quite an exciting day because I finally had my first long-form conversation, and I'm really excited to share it with all of you. I had a conversation with Matti and Aarni. They've got their own podcast. I'll link it below. They have loads of conversations with interesting people. And they contacted me and they wanted to have a conversation. And we spoke for quite a while. We spoke about everything from why I moved to Finland, my views on the politics here. We speak about philosophy and a bunch of random stuff, you know. So I think you guys will absolutely enjoy this. Let me know what you think below. It's going to be awesome. Let's get straight into it.
What was your reason for staying in Finland and not moving back to Cape Town? Because if you want to do music, I don't know if I don't think Finland is really known for blowing up artists in the international scene.
Well, I think the first thing was I didn't think my story with Finland was over because when I first arrived here, it was difficult to try to see the bright side of things, but I ended up really disliking Finland for a while because it's so weird. Like the people, the culture, the food, the language, everything was really confusing, and add on top of that a difficult relationship, and you've got the perfect storm, you know. And I was just
cold.
Yeah, and it's cold, right? I wasn't used to this sort of weather, and when the relationship ended, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, what happens now? Because we don't have to get into like resident permits and whatever, but I was here because of the relationship I was in.
True.
And but then my work, because I told my work, I was like, hey guys, the jig is up. Like, you know,
shit's hit the fan.
Yeah. And then I was like, unless if you guys want to vouch for me and I stay because of work, we can do that. And they graciously did that because they liked what I did for them, which is good. So I'm glad I was working hard. And then they allowed me to stay for work because I was just like, my whole life was here now. Like, and I didn't want my memory of Finland to be like all the stuff I mentioned previously. And then once I stayed, something magical began to happen slowly. I began to fall in love with this weird little country and the people and the culture and, you know, all its little quirks, nature, just everything about it. And slowly but surely, South Africa became less and less home. And then this became home. So, yeah, that's basically why I ended up staying.
That's quite interesting. So what's your situation now? Like, I remember from the new kind of government or the new coalition, there was this idea of having immigrants, if they don't have a paying work for, I think, a 2-month period, they get deported from Finland.
Yeah.
So are you now, if your current job ends, are you in danger of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Does that law still need to be voted on?
Yeah, I don't think that's in action now. But if it does come to reality.
Yeah, it's... I don't understand the thinking behind that. I do understand that there are some areas of immigration that need to be tightened up and that sort of stuff. But yes, to answer your question, if I were out of work for 2 months or 2 or 3 months, I'm not quite sure which one it is, I would have to legally leave, right? Which is really crazy. I don't understand it's like the people you want here are people who are working, adding to the economy, actually doing good stuff here. And to add on top of everything else that makes it difficult to be someone who comes from a different country here with a different language, different culture, and to add this weird thing about 3 months, like, how do you place your trust in a country like that if you're coming with your whole family? And if you are some sort of specialist? I know it can be really difficult to find work. Like if you're some sort of specialist, it can take 2-3 months to find a good fit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would impact me. But I would be very surprised if it was voted for positively and people thought that was a good idea. I understand. No, I don't understand the thinking behind, but I understand people do have issues with how well
you can sympathize with the sentiment.
Yeah, I can sympathize with the sentiment. I completely agree in terms of if someone comes to your country, they ought to be like upstanding citizens and, adding to the economy, paying taxes. I pay the same taxes as everyone else. I would think I should have the same treatment, right? Because I think they also had this thing, this idea of connecting social, what do you call it when, let's say, you're out of work in the government?
Security.
Social security, yeah, right? Connecting the amount of social security you get with how good your finish is. Which in it, I'm like, what are you trying to do? Not that I haven't lived off social security or whatever, but it's just the idea behind it. It's telling you, yeah, you can be here, but you kind of like a second class citizen. It's all right. We'll take your taxes, but if you lose your job, countdown starting but stay. We are here for you. So that's kind of weird. I'm really confused as to why they're going about it this way. It makes no sense. I know the strategy is to overshoot so that because if things get watered down, you at least have a little something. I would guess that's how it usually works. You pitch something that probably won't happen.
Yeah. And
then you just cut back a little bit on that.
Yeah, maybe so. It's like, yeah, we're not doing the worst possible thing.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting. I'd be interested for you guys as Finnish people here. What are your views on all of that? Have you guys given that any thought? Or
well, it's quite weird making it harder for specialists, especially like you have the issue of humanitarian immigration that should be handled completely separately from labor-based immigration.
Yeah.
Because like, for example, you as a specialist or any other specialist that comes to Finland to work, I think what we are forgetting from the entire discussion is, sure, if you get unemployed and you like pick up social security checks for 3 months, okay, but we haven't had to spend the 18 years of government money on raising you.
Yeah.
You are still, you can be unemployed for almost an infinite amount of months. Well, not really, but you can rely on social security for a very long time and still be way cheaper as a worker for the Finnish government. I haven't
thought about it that way. That's actually quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's just doesn't seem very intelligent to make it more difficult for people who have kind of the additional value.
Yeah.
And then of course, who has additional value, it's very hard to draw the line there.
Yeah.
But come on. If we are a free country, that is, our economy is kind of a capitalist socialist mix.
Yeah.
then you should at least be. It would be intelligent to give every immigrant that's a specialist or a labor-based immigrant the best possible opportunities to then prove themselves. That's the best case scenario for all of us. It's very hard to believe that it's a good idea to make kind of nerf or make their opportunities harder and then also be tougher on them on the restrictions. It's a bad combo, and I don't think we'll come out on top with it. Humanitarian immigration, of course,
it's a completely different issue.
Yeah.
That has to be. I think we probably would have had a whole episode on it if Aarni and I had a solution on it. But humanitarian immigration, you have to have a specific amount you're willing to, chip in to the global pool and help people in need.
Yeah, and then you also have to have an institution that can then at least somehow secure or know beyond reasonable doubt that you are in need of the place.
Yeah, and if you are a humanitarian immigrant, you are not being taken in because you certainly add value to the society.
Yeah.
You are being taken in as a service, and therefore there needs to be. You can have harder restrictions on humanitarian immigrants. I don't understand why we are taking that out of the question completely. We are messing it up for all immigrants with that kind of logic. You can have different restrictions. You can have different social security thresholds you need to meet as a humanitarian immigrant if you want to, for example, further down the line become a citizen in Finland.
Yeah.
The problem, as far as I understand, is that we are lacking the resources to know beyond reasonable doubt that all the people coming through, like humanitarian immigration, port gates, route, are legit. So then you just add them to the pool of immigrants and try to treat them all the same.
Yeah, but
because
I think
let's say the border between Turkey and Greece, it's full of passports people throw away.
Really?
Because then, all the trash cans they're just full of passports because people, your chances of securing
when they pass the Mediterranean.
Oh,
yes,
snap.
your chances of securing the spot in the
refugee camp.
Yeah, refugee camps or refugee programs or getting into countries. It's way bigger if you just.
Yeah, because they don't know where to send you back.
Yeah, they don't know where to send you back. They don't know where to check your information. They don't, because you can tell them a different name. You can tell them a different country and then they'll just have to buy it.
But that's kind of weird because...
And what do you do then?
Oof. That is weird. How do you deal with that?
This is how we've been dealing with it. It's of course suboptimal, but it's, you have to do something.
I think the argument, the counter argument to, how do you know if a person is a humanitarian immigrant is, well, of course, in that case, this may not apply, but the counter argument has been that if we only take humanitarian immigrants from the refugee camps through our quota humanitarian immigration system, then we can at least kind of be sure that they're probably legit because living there is so shit. Yeah, because I think we had, and of course this fact can be checked, but we had Seida Sohrabi on one of our, I think, first episodes ever, and I think she said something like along the lines of people who are able to travel or buy the kind of traveling, I don't know, services, but by the people who are able to afford the route from some country to Finland, they are not kind of in need of Finnish asylums because that route is so expensive to go through.
Right.
They could probably stay in any of the countries on the route.
And that's why they're usually young males.
Yeah, and I also think something that to add into all of this is the fact that I think we've noticed with places like Sweden that if you don't find a way to integrate people really well, and Finnish people have certain values that they hold in high regard, right? And if you bring people from different countries with a completely different system, with completely different morals, and then it clashes with how Finnish culture actually is, that will, at least on the national stage, when people are watching, that will aggravate people. And then I think that's why some of these crazy laws are trying to be passed, because it's like, I'm not quite sure where it was happening. Have you guys seen that the no square dance? I'm
not familiar.
Oh, really? It was this TikTok dance where I don't know where it was in Finland, some city, where there was a lot of sexual assault, mostly committed by immigrants who were like asylum seekers and whatever. And then they created this whole TikTok dance to stop that from happening.
Interesting.
And it was it was the cringiest thing ever, and you know, it went viral in a lot of like Asian countries where they started using it as like their
without knowing where it came from. Obviously.
Oh well, I think they were making fun of it.
Oh, okay.
Because I mean, the idea, I think it goes no, stop. This is my no square, and it's like this weird dance and whatever, and it just looks really terrible. But the point is, for people who live here, seeing that, hearing that, there's a lot of sexual assault happening because people who actually don't need to be here are here and causing that just aggravates people, right? And then so it is. And I'm not quite sure as to all the numbers and and whatever.
You can probably kind of twist the numbers in a way to suit your agenda.
Yeah, exactly. But then you also kind of get to this idea of like, if you come into someone's home and they allow you to stay there, like if I go stay at a friend's place, I would usually be extra clean and you know, and I'd make sure I'm not disturbing their place because they let me in, right? So I think there is kind of like more pressure on you to actually add something good. So I think that's why people don't have a lot of tolerance for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and then also there's this pretty problematic, well, the way, psychologically speaking, people usually approach feeling like an outsider is pretending you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
Which then also causes people to treat you as an outsider.
Say that one more time.
If you feel like you're an outsider, the usual defense from you is to act like you don't need the surrounding group.
Right. And then you make your own little community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you perhaps act entitled, you perhaps degrade the culture, you perhaps whatever. You act like you don't respect it because you feel like they don't want you here. And you're just, well, trying to just find your own path there. It's pretty hard, I think.
Yeah.
I think that plays a part in it, especially with like younger people.
How would we go about actually trying to integrate people properly? Or because I think even if you are bringing people in because of a humanitarian crisis or whatever, I would think you would still vet the people, make sure that it's not like a serial killer or something, or like, you know, I don't care where you're coming from or how desperate you are. If you're like a serial killer, like find another place. You know what I'm saying? I do think that there should be a good screening process. But the tricky thing is, how do you actually integrate people into your society? But I also think the burden falls on someone who comes to the country, should have the mindset of, I'm going to try and integrate. I think it's kind of wild that someone can come from a different place and be like, why isn't this country bowing down to me?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? That is kind of crazy.
Well, it's probably a two-way street.
It is.
And like, let's be fair, coming into Finland, this is probably one of the hardest countries to integrate into. We are probably not the most like welcoming group of people you'll find. You're probably, you know, going to a bus and sitting next to someone that's Finnish and starting talking to them in English. It's that I don't think that's gonna. Well, sometimes it might.
Talking to someone on a bus.
Yeah, exactly. And there aren't many like.
You don't have the easy way.
There aren't many places to get in. It's
No,
not
you're
like
right.
you can
We don't have a lot of like
walk into a bazaar or a busy restaurant and start talking to people. We don't have those because it's a cold country. People are inside. They're with their close kin, and that's how our society has developed.
Right. I didn't even think about that because my way of coming here, I was already kind of like I came here for someone.
Yeah, you already
and I was already
people,
a little bit into in the little cul-de-sac or whatever. Like, so yeah, it's true. I'm just thinking about that from that perspective. Yeah, that would be quite difficult, right? But then again, yes, I think we need to find a way to make things easier for people coming here. But there's some, I don't know if there's a way to somehow create some sort of incentives to, like, you know, if you come here, hey, if you, I don't know, take this sort of course or do whatever, you know, we can offer you these things for free, or hey, if you come here, you have to learn this or whatever. I don't know if that would be. I wonder if because now I'm just thinking, I'm like, is that cruel? But like, I don't.
If you want people to integrate, there is a right answer. The answer is, because you were asking this before,
right?
The answer is language. People aren't inherently racist. People aren't inherently. Well, let's say it like this. You walk into a room, and whatever the people look like, they speak your language, and they speak it in exactly the way you do, the same dialect, same everything, same manner, same words. You integrate instantly.
That is very
people
true.
Are way more racist towards dialects, different dialects or different accents than they are with race or ethnicity or whatever. So the answer to integration is it always begins with language, I think.
No, I think that is absolutely true. Which, speaking about language, this is where in the discussion I start feeling a little bit guilty because I still haven't.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're planning on learning Finnish.
I mean, because when I first moved here, I'll be honest. Like I said, I didn't like it here, and I was planning in my head. I was like,
I gotta get out.
I'm gonna be here, work really hard, and then move to America. Like with my partner at the time, I was like, my girlfriend at the time, I was like, we'll, I'll try get us to America or something because this is crazy. Like, you know. And then once I started going through everything I was going through, I just didn't have the mental, emotional energy to focus on that. But what I try to focus on is I try to dive head first into the culture and into seeing the beauty of Finnish culture, the foods. I started making like YouTube videos about that. I was quite passionate. That was kind of my way of integrating in a way. But in the same breath, I do know that in certain aspects, things would have been so much easier and smoother if I could just speak Finnish, which now I'm in the process of trying to start learning Finnish.
Process of trying to start to learn.
It's work in progress, yeah.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. No, I genuinely want to, but I actually don't have a good excuse. So that's why when it comes,
I'll give you one.
What?
We Finns actually might make it pretty hard for
we always
immigrants
speak
or
English
immigrants
to immigrants.
What's that?
We always, if it seems that the person we're talking to might not be comfortable speaking Finnish, or their Finnish is sort of broken or something,
Right.
we're usually just really comfortable with just switching to English.
Yeah.
Which then in turn leads to the people never learning
the language. Yeah, I mean,
have you noticed that?
Yeah, no, I have noticed that.
Well, he probably hasn't tried speaking
I was
Finnish
just
so
about to say, I've noticed because I've tried to speak Finnish so often. No, I have noticed that Finnish people are really quick to speak in English. And I think both things can be true at once. On the one hand, my Finnish is trash. And on the other hand, people should learn Finnish. I mean, I don't know how to say it any
And
better
you can
than
be
that.
the like exception to the rule.
No, don't give him the excuse.
Let's say you should learn Finnish. It's a beautiful language.
Yeah,
and
I
if you
think
like
so.
the country, then I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you live in Helsinki, you're working in English.
Well, it's more fun to be in Finland, I think.
Yeah.
If you
It
is
speak
a lot.
Finnish.
And it's
Because you
it's
can
a
like,
really fun
read
language.
stuff.
True.
No, it is true. It is true. I think me working a lot in English and
Yeah. Like you don't probably
everything.
need Finnish in Helsinki at all.
Like in my day to day,
No.
like everything I do is in English. The company I work for is international. The friends I keep are the ones who actually want to be speaking English. You know, and this obviously isn't an excuse. And I think it just makes it that much more little difficult.
Yeah, there's no absolutely necessary incentive that's pushing you to it.
Yeah. And I think I would want to learn it just for the sake of it. And if I end up having kids one day, I need to be able to speak Finnish. I think that's an absolute must, right? So it will happen. Maybe the next interview we have,
True. Yeah.
well, it's gonna be like completely in Finnish. But yeah, so yeah, that's what I was just saying. The language thing, I always feel a little bit guilty when I talk about that aspect of it. I feel like I don't have any right to be like, people who come here need to learn the language, and I'm here like, well.
True.
But I have still tried to integrate. Like I think I have found a way to integrate without the language.
Yeah.
I think the integration showing, reflecting back the same values, treating people with respect, all these sort of things, working hard, not being a menace to society, trying to put some good in the world, all those things. I feel like even if you haven't mastered the language, if that is the posture of your heart, I think people are so much more willing. But if you come here and you're like, this trashy language, I'm not learning. Why the hell do I have to learn this?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be a part of what you guys are doing? I think people can kind of sense that.
Yeah.
You know.
But also in Finland, like I think you'll absolutely get 95% of the way just by reflecting the Finnish values and
True.
culture.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we don't really speak to strangers. So you very rarely get caught for not speaking Finnish.
True. And another thing which probably makes Finland a bit easier to integrate into is that we don't this is a problem actually, I think. We don't share a very like a common pride in Finnish culture and being Finnish.
Really,
so
you don't?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay. Why do you say that? Or do you have any subjective or objective views on that? Like, why do you think?
Well, the two examples that come to mind, they're both from Sweden, but we're pretty similar.
You're right.
The first one is the not the current, but the previous Swedish prime minister, when being asked about immigration, actually, the journalist was like, "Are you scared that with so many strong cultures coming to Sweden, that Swedish culture is threatened at all?" The minister answered, "What culture are you talking about?
Oof.
What
Yeah.
Swedish culture?" But this is a few, like 6-7 years back.
They're
and then-
feeling the pain of that now. But yeah.
True.
Yeah.
It was also the first openly feminist prime minister. That just so happens.
What does that even? Never mind.
Let's skip that.
Yeah. No. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Pretty far left politician. Anyway, the other is actually from Greta Thunberg, who
How dare you?
that was a pretty good impersonation.
How dare you?
Recently, in an interview, I don't remember the Swedish Independence Day, but we're closing in, if not past it already.
Okay.
She was asked about how she feels about Swedish culture.
Right.
And she was like, "I don't think Swedish culture is very important to us Swedes, and I think a lot of Swedes feel the same way. And being Swedish is just about respecting others and so on. Some pretty, like, really basic values, which, yeah, I think is pretty interesting, considering you have centuries and centuries of history and pretty shared history and identity and so on. But then, yeah, I think we Finns, many Finns share the sentiment, and we at least have some inferiority complex compared to other cultures.
Yeah, and I also think, like, one thing I do find quite interesting about all this is I hate it when I lose my train of thought. It's the most annoying thing. This whole thing about, one thing I find on the political spectrum, people who are a lot more left-leaning, they seem to lean more towards this thing of national pride, national identity. Psh, we're all human.
Yeah.
Like, let's all just be human together. But it's like, but then what's binding you?
Exactly.
Like, what is the and then on the right, this idea of, hey, we are, like, on the absolute right, this idea of, like, hey, only Finnish people, like,
no nationalism.
This is all we're doing. And it's like, I think both can be true, and you can find somewhere in between where it's like, it's true. I think there does need to be something that binds a country together. You know, like, otherwise, what are you? You know, when countries are more homogenous, and usually they function
Things work
better.
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy to say, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So I think this idea of everyone is just the same, whatever. No, there's completely different values attached to those. The thing that everyone agrees is like, hey, this is what it means to be us. Like, you know, there's history attached to that. There's the way you act and behave, values. All those things are completely attached to you. And maybe once upon a time, it used to be like religion. Religion used to bind countries together.
Still does in many countries.
Yes, it still does in many countries. And now that we kind of getting rid of those sort of things, and like the case with Päivi Räsänen, like now things are getting spicy like around there. But like, yeah, so I don't know. I definitely think you have to have something that binds you, or else it's just going to devolve into chaos. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really agree with like Finland having a national identity crisis. Maybe Helsinki.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot more probable.
Helsinki cosmopolitan loss of identity due to the cosmopolitan ideal of like humanism.
Right.
Sure.
Because I think most Finns, maybe it's kind of because we are mostly, I don't know, how do you describe it? Do you call it a quiet culture? But we don't really bring our Finnishness to the front a lot. We have some common traditions and events, but they're not super flashy and super big.
Right.
They're like, we don't bring out the Finnish culture in that way.
Yeah.
We have it's more, I think, I don't know if this is stupid, but it feels more implicit between like the culture and tradition and values.
I remember my middle school teacher. He made a distinction between strong cultures and weak cultures, and the distinction was between, or he played like a scenario, and the scenario was a family or a person moves to another country. How quickly do they begin to live in the ways of the other country, and how much do they bring their own culture to that country? And in that sense, I think Finnish culture is on the weaker side. If we move to another country, I don't know how much of our Finnishness
you're actually
we bring.
right.
But then, let's say you come from a very country where Islam is very prevalent, and let's say you pray 5 times a day, and you have all the things that come with that, and you dress a certain way. We don't dress a certain way. That's already it's visible to everyone, and and so on. Then that's a stronger culture. That's a weaker culture.
Finns, we rarely kind of immigrate to anywhere as families.
Yeah.
Almost always when a Finnish person moves to another country, they go alone when they kind of need to fit in and not really boast that look how different I am.
Right.
You know?
Because online, I personally, it's quite interesting you say that, is because I fiercely defend Finnish culture. Like even in the content I put out, the jokes I talk about, they all just kind of bring to the forefront something that most Finnish people kind of all agree with. I fiercely defend it. Like I remember on Twitter or X now, I guess, I remember someone was some like more right-leaning. Oh, you can have the coffee if you want.
Yeah, let's take a coffee break in 5 minutes, but you can finish this thing.
All right. Anyway, on this more right-leaning person was had a little video of hobby horsing. You know, where you have the fake horse and whatever.
Yeah.
And I won't lie, if you've never seen it before, it looks kind of whack. You're like, what is going on here? But once you get into it, you completely understand. People are just having fun, not hurting anyone. Not everyone can afford a freaking horse, like, you know, and people are just having
pretty
fun.
expensive.
And then this person wrote, they're like, oh, this is vegan horse racing. I was like, bro, this is called hobby horsing in Finland. And these are people just having a good time. Finnish people love meat, like vegan horse riding. What are you talking about? And so that's why I think for me right now, having lived here and experiencing the culture and seeing how the culture and the way people are raised here, how it affects society in terms of crime and the way the system works, things work here. So there's obviously something freaking good about it, and it should be celebrated. So it's like, so I find it crazy that anyone might think that diluting, or actually, I don't know why Finnish people are not more outwardly proud. Oh, no, actually, Finnish people are very proud of their culture, but maybe silently.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
They're very expressive people.
Yeah.
If we exclude the the idealistic cosmopolitans, then yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
so,
pretty prevalent in Helsinki.
They're pretty
or
loud at least.
Yeah. We're southern Finland, I would say.
really, I won't lie, I haven't really paid.
You
Too
probably
much
haven't
attention.
gone to university in Finland.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, I have not. What is university culture like here in Finland? In
We are
terms
the
of-
wrong people for
Yeah,
that
because
one.
we at least so far we've just skipped university because it's possible now.
Oh
just
yeah, true. To just
start a career, yeah.
that is really true.
But we could perhaps
Yeah,
take a 5-minute break. And,
Yeah.
Coffee break?
Yeah.
I can get so lost in video making. Like, bro, I could literally sit there and then I get messages from friends. I'm like, what friends? But I'd love to start doing a little bit of that with my actual music, because it's a very important part of who I am. But for the last little while, I've been so focused on creating content, and I've grown like 3 different accounts to quite substantial amounts, which shows that I've actually learned how.
Yeah, you know the code.
Yeah, I kind of understand how to create content and to make it good, right? But that has come at the expense of me, of music taking a back seat, which I only realize now it actually bothers me. It actually really does bother me. And but the thing about being an adult is whatever situation you find yourself in, you have the ability to change that situation by the choices you make.
Exactly.
So I've got no one to blame.
Freedom,
Yeah,
you mean?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And coming back to Jordan Peterson,
We're
remember-
starting to begin every episode and every like new segment with Jordan Peterson.
yeah, it's my fault. Yeah.
It's okay.
But there was I think it's 2017, the personality lectures, but it's whatever. There was a question from the audience, and someone asked, "How do I begin putting my life in order?"
Right.
And he gave a pretty simple formula. The thing was, because there's always an infinite amount of things to focus on and to get better at and to whatever. Ask yourself what bothers you, and the things that bother you, because there's probably a few things and they're from different areas of life. Those are the things you should orient yourself with.
So good.
And because if they bother you, ask yourself why, and if it is a morally good reason,
Right.
pursue it. And if, let's say, you just admitted that music taking a backseat bothers you, there's probably a reason. There's probably a calling inside you. That you
How did I set myself up a trap like this? No, it's really true. No, I agree.
I think perhaps a bit along the same lines. I think Jordan Peterson gave a different, almost the same answer, but the same question. He had the answer of if you're, for example, sitting in your room and you ask yourself, what's one thing that I know I'm doing wrong, that I know I could correct in my daily life.
That's
and
so good.
Yeah.
And I know that I have the willpower to correct it.
Do you know, and I completely agree with that. I've got a a slightly different way of looking at it. Because have you ever had it where you just feel like trash and you don't know why? You just, you could be, I don't know, you think it's your work, you think it's whatever, and it all kind of gets mixed. And I remember this was freaking me out, and I spent some time writing down. I was like, I tried to create to different compartments of my life that if that area is good or bad, it affects my life drastically. And I found 5 things, and in no particular order. And in no particular order, I'd say 1 is relationships. 2 is spirituality, like your reason for being. 3, and these 2 things, but it's basically 1, I'd say emotional, mental. And then, wait, I've got it up there actually. Then there's physical, and then there's money. I found that every problem I have in my life has to do with one of those things. Like if I'm chilling there and I'm like, oh, there's no point in life. Well, what are my views on spirituality, or at least connecting with something a little bigger than who I am? You know, I grew up in a really poor home. I have seen how not having money destroys the quality of life. So it's like, so instead of just sitting there and I'm like, oh, my life is a mess, I'm like, what area in my life is causing me issues? If I'm feeling aimless, this is one thing. If the way I view the world it has a negative twist to it, so it's the emotional, mental, like what is my paradigm of the world? You know, and that has been like an absolute breakthrough in terms of how I orient my life now. You know, physical. Sometimes, most of the times, you're not depressed. You just didn't sleep well. You didn't eat. You're hangry, actually. But because you don't know how to separate, you just throw it into this pot of, hey, I'm a confused human. When it's like, we've actually got so much more agency, and I think we are gifted with a mind for a reason, so that we can actually reason through things. Like sometimes, like for example, I started doing morning exercises. I didn't go to the gym because I knew that if I went to the gym, I'd create excuses. So I decided that every morning, most mornings, without fail, I'd wake up and do push-ups and sit-ups and that sort of thing. And one thing I realized is that just on a purely physical level, when I wake up in the morning, I feel absolutely trash, let's just say. I allow that feeling to be there. I'm like, I woke up, I'm not going to stress about this feeling. I feel trash right now. That's completely all right. That's fine. My body just woke up. And then I will do an exercise. And just off that exercise, I always immediately feel at least 40 to 50% better. Like I feel like I just like lifted my mood to a certain level. And that was purely just the physical side of things. If I didn't do that, and also about those 5 things, they all interconnect and they're all mixed in together. So your physicality can affect different areas. And there are times when you have to lean on one more than the other. Let's say, I don't know, you're sick, right? You've got no control over that. So, hey, maybe you need to rely more on relationships and spirituality at that moment, or, you know, and I noticed that something I would love people to know, especially guys in particular, is this idea that you have more control over life, over the way you experience it than you think. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Viktor Frankl.
Yes. There's hardly a podcast episode where I don't mention.
Really, yeah. There's I can't even remember the exact quote, but it has.
I might remember it.
Yeah.
It has,
Give a hint, and Aarni
it has
will pick it
always
up.
touched my heart. It's something along the lines of if I can try and paraphrase it, how does he say it again? Something along the lines of you. There's something that they can't take away from you.
Yes.
The way you act, your choices.
Yes, it's from the first part of Man's Search for Meaning, when they arrive at the concentration camps and they're stripped naked, and they're all their possessions are taken from them, probably burnt, or if there's anything valuable, they take it for use, and they take your hair away, they take everything away, and then he looks at the mirror and thinks to himself, "Damn, they could take all this away from me, but I'm still me.
That is
You can't
so
take
amazing.
that away."
I want to actually quickly.
Yeah.
I think the quote is worth reading. Let's see.
I was actually gonna mention Frankel just from your
Really, from what I was saying there.
Yeah. The taxonomy of like what bothers you.
Then again, that's not really a surprise.
Yeah.
Something. Oh yeah, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing: the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I have not heard something so powerful before. Is we live in this world. We are born. We didn't have a choice in that, right? But it is evident that we have some sort of control over something innate in us that no one can take away from us. And we are not like leaves blown in the wind, you know? I think in a lot of our lives, we can actually be the wind and not the leaf being blown by it, you know? And I think if more people began to see that they are not victims to their emotions, you know, they, at the very least, if everything is taken from you, you can still choose inside to see things how you want to.
Exactly.
You know, and I think, so this whole thing about separating that has genuinely changed my life. And it's just super practical things, you know, like really like, so I'm really blown away by that, and my life has been better for it.
Yeah, I think everyone's life will be better after reading Man's Search for Meaning. If you,
I actually haven't read the whole thing. I should.
You should, yeah.
Right after learning Finnish, or maybe you can start with it. I think it's a lower
Finnish,
barrier.
Yeah.
True.
I'll give you another incentive, because probably my quality of life improved the most out of all the wisdom I've read after reading Man's Search for Meaning.
Really?
Yeah, and the most like what touched me the most was Frankel's taxonomy of what creates meaning in your life. And he divided meaning into 3 categories.
Right.
And the first one was the most obvious one. It was what we usually associate with like doing something meaningful.
Right.
And it was doing things that then make you feel like you're progressing on the path that's your path, whatever that may be. Might be your career, might be improving your relationship, whatever, getting good grades, those sorts of things. The second thing was being in touch with the innate beauty of the universe. Because there are moments that are just somehow beautiful. They somehow feel meaningful. And I felt like I had sort of sort of lost that because I felt in those moments I felt childish. Things are beautiful, but I need to get to work. I need to get things done. But there's as much meaning as you can get from your career. You can get from smelling the air.
Yeah.
Having a pleasant interaction.
Yeah.
Eating good food and so on. Those sorts of things. And you should place equal value on that. And the third thing, which blew my mind, the third category was suffering. Suffering is an inevitable fact of life, but it's such. I'm getting like shivers.
Dude, I'm getting hit right now, man. Continue. Yeah.
And I've been actually thinking about this a lot.
Right.
Suffering is the clearest. Suffering brings the mind-body disconnection back together instantly, because happiness, you can snap out of it instantly. Even sadness, let's say you're sad, but then something comes up and you can instantly orient yourself.
I win €1 million.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Suffering, it's a fact. There's no way to escape from suffering, be it physical or mental or a connection of the two. And suffering is always, it's your own. And it gives you a clear direction every time. And every time you're offered, when you're suffering, you're offered a chance to ascend. You're offered a chance to, if I get through this, I know I'm a stronger person. So, and that's why many philosophers, starting basically from Schopenhauer, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but
I've heard.
Yeah, he's the guy who had the most terrible life ever. Just like the worst life you can imagine a person to have. And he came to the realization that suffering is the most important thing in growth. It's just, and you can see from people's eyes if they've like lived a life of suffering, and it's if it hasn't broken them, it's always made them stronger. And that's why the Nietzsche quote, whatever, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Makes you stronger, yeah.
Everyone knows it. It's like a fact. And I really like that.
And I guess in some sort of weird way, it seems like because we can get so stuck in the normality of life, like you say, go to work, blah, blah, blah. We do all these things. There are moments in life when something happens that is beyond our control, that forces us to have to, like you said, the mind-body connection, to kind of bring you back into like, hey, some of these things that I thought were so important are not right now. Like, for example, my mother, bless her, I love her, but she stresses a lot, like her whole life. She's really a big stressor, right? And more recently, she was just like, again, pretty stressed out about stuff, about money, about whatever. And then she went to the hospital and she was getting pain in her throat. And then there was like a weird growth in her throat. And for like a week or two, she was unbelievably stressed, obviously. And her worries about like money and whatever very quickly took a back seat at that moment. It was like, hey, I'd be poor and happy if just as long as this isn't something crazy. Yeah. And then finally she went to the hospital and it turns out it's something weird. It was weird tendons that kind of grew at the back and then they were able to easily cut it out and whatever. And then she was shining with gratitude, right? She was absolutely just buzzing with it. And I was like, hey, you went through something really scary, but nothing else was going to snap you out of that except what you've just been through now. Now, why do we have to wait for something bad in life to happen to find that same gratitude? Like you were saying, is it possible to maybe wake up and take a deep breath, and just in that moment, just the feeling of breath rushing through your lungs, the fact that you're alive, and be able to find just some bit of gratitude within that? And it's almost like you simply for being, for existing, because you being able to exist, I think someone crunched some of the numbers. Like it's crazy. Like the chances of you existing. Let's not even talk about how the Big Bang even happened or what that is. But let's just say it happened naturally, and everything that could have happened, the fact that you are here now, is insane. And it's and sometimes I find myself, I'm like, why am I worrying about this little thing?
Yeah.
When there is so much more. I feel like if we truly got to understand the magnitude and the miracle and the beauty of us existing, if we truly understand that, I feel like we would walk around crying with joy every moment. And last thing I remember, being a kid, I was like I used to be a part of a church and stuff, and I was in primary school. I must have been like 8, 9, maybe 10. And I was walking from school, and I'll never forget this. And I still don't understand this. And I used to do this thing where I'd talk to God when I'd walk, I'd pray or whatever, but in really casual way. And then I remember I was walking through this park, and out of nowhere, I got hit with euphoria that I'd never felt before. Like I was a kid. I remember I started crying. I threw my bag on the floor and I started running in the park and jumping. And I felt like I couldn't believe how grateful I was for and I'll never forget that it hit me like in every part of my body. And ever since then, I am a firm believer that gratitude, the ability to use gratitude, is probably one of the greatest skills a human can have. And this shit should be taught in schools. It should be, I don't know, like if we were just a little bit more grateful about who we were, 100% the world would be better.
It's always in your tool belt also.
Exactly.
However, I think it's a bit against the quite primal human nature, which is oriented towards issues.
True. Why do you think that is?
How could a species survive that focused on being grateful about whatever is nice? Because if it's nice, it doesn't
this
matter.
Lion is eating me, but sunset looking kind of nice.
Yeah, there's always the struggle of survival has always been: do I have enough food? Do my children have enough food? Do we have shelter?
I'll push back a little bit on that and say, when a deer gets chased by a lion, it's freaked out. As soon as it outruns the lion, it forgets the lion existed.
Yeah, but deers and humans, our brains operate pretty differently. Deers aren't very good at problem solving. No, true. I'm saying like, but this the idea of it is still exactly the same. Where our minds, we are able to keep the lion there in our minds. I think we do have the ability to learn how to turn the lion off when the lion isn't in front of us. Yes. Like for example, I'm saying like it's something we can do. Perhaps we're not inclined to do it, but I still think that, especially in this day and age, because when you are in high levels of stress, your blood, your heart beats faster. Stress genuinely kills you, right? And so
we kind of have to learn how to be able to, although we evolved that way.
Yeah, it's a
But the
skill,
world
skill
has
of today.
changed, right?
It's a skill of today. You need to
Well,
learn
that-
it to
yeah.
operate today.
Yeah.
And you know, you have all these people. Well, you have the saying. At this point, everyone's heard it on TikTok or something. But the saying is like, you know, was like hard times create strong men, and strong men
Yeah.
create easy times, and easy men create hard times, and then
Yeah.
Easy times.
yeah,
create
easy times and
soft
then
men.
easy times create. You
Yeah.
know, soft men and soft men
both said
create
it hard.
yeah,
Yeah,
we've all
we
heard.
know
I
it.
still didn't get it correctly.
Yeah.
And we have somehow we have convinced ourselves that we are currently living in the easy times, and that's what's making us soft, which is, I think, incorrect. We are maybe living, at least in Finland, in a physically pretty easy times. I think we are living extremely hard times in the mental sense, and that's why you, speaking of gratitude, it's an absolute skill of today, but it makes sense that it's not really uncovered yet, because it hasn't been the necessary skill to uncover to survive in the past, while it might very well be today.
I think that's my issue with identity politics. It creates victims a lot of the time. Like, because I'm black, I should be expecting racism in Finland. You know, that like that's what people think. They like, you should be feeling like this. You know, and they're quite shocked when you're like, I don't know, I'm actually pretty chill. Like, I'm living my life. Does racism exist? Yeah, sure, of course.
But it's not the worst thing in the world.
No, it's definitely
not stopping you from going out there and buying groceries and living your life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way the world is now is there's constantly this like oppression Olympics. Like
Is that your term?
No, I think I've heard it somewhere before, where there are levels to how oppressed you can be, right?
Yeah, it's a currency.
Yeah, it's kind of a currency. White people, I'm sorry, you guys, you are not allowed to
White
be,
heterosexual males.
you are not allowed to feel nothing. Like, actually, when something happens to you, you probably did something to deserve it. You know, when you're black, okay, let's kind of spend some time in that. If you black, gay, and disabled,
You won. Yeah.
you basically can come in floating and like, you know, and I know I'm making
You have
a
some
light of it.
secret knowledge of the universe. You can now tell everyone.
Omnipotent.
Yeah, and I definitely think that that way of thinking, of course, there are some very real challenges, some very real things that need to be sorted out. I'm not taking any of that away. But imagine if the posture of humanity was more this thing of, I've got agency, I can change things. Oh, I've got racism here in Finland. Oh, I can either...
Well, let's fix it.
Yeah, I could either try and fix it, or I could get out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, I've got agency.
Yeah.
You know, we're not living like back in the days where things, probably wouldn't be good for me. But yeah, I don't know.
We can continue this part of the conversation. I think we will have another episode in the future for sure, and we can probably continue this more higher level part of the conversation then.
Sure.
But I see a segue here, and I really need to take it.
Take it.
Because while we were taking a break, we were discussing kind of, we were really touching on the immigrant experience in Finland.
Yeah.
And then, you know, flashing the idea of an immigrant experience in Finland podcast, which we will get back to after this. We'll get dinner or coffee
sounds
or
so
something.
good. Yeah.
But yeah, but what I really want to ask is, you know, give a summary of your experience as an immigrant in Finland, you know, including racism, including the difficulty to integrate, including how have you found yourself able to integrate.
Right.
And, well, everything you deem necessary here.
Right. I will say in the beginning, moving here, it was quite a shock to me in every sense of the word, obviously. it was a very strange experience, because coming from South Africa, when I saw white people, they either spoke English, Afrikaans, maybe French. But then I arrive here and people, they're speaking this language where I'm like, oh, they totally making up words right now, and that was really strange to me. But then when I started coming in, and I'd be in environments where everyone would be speaking Finnish, or the jokes they would make, or it was just all very, something I wasn't used to, And like I said in the beginning, I didn't enjoy it all that much. But then I started to lean into it, right? I started to understand that that the world is quite a good place if I choose to see it that way. So I started to actively look for all the good stuff, things that I didn't understand or didn't know, things that bothered me. Which one's the milk and which one's the whatever. I began to actively go out and start looking for friends. I'll go to places and speak to people. I started to research things about Finland, and I would start sharing my experiences. And one thing I noticed is that in general, there were certain rules. Number one, I learned very quickly to not try and superimpose what I'm used to onto this country. In South Africa, you sit in the bus, someone's going to talk to you about something, or someone's going to sit really close to you and it's going to be uncomfortable. And you kind of expect that. But here, you have to, if you don't understand the rules, you'll start thinking that people are just rude. Right?
We have the no-no square.
Yeah, we have our own no-no square.
Yeah.
Have you had
we don't need the dance. We have the no-no square.
I think we have the no-no aura.
The no-no aura.
Yeah. Have you? Sorry, have you had because you said that if you do a misstep, you'll be notified of it very quickly, kind of. Have you had an experience where, for example, you try speaking to a stranger in Finland and they're like, "What's happening?"
Yeah. At the very least, I have. When I first moved here, I remember trying to just be outgoing and like, "Hey, what's up?" And I could see there wasn't. There was something missing there. I could see it was very uncomfortable for the person, and I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." And then I'd go to a bar, and then everyone wants to talk there. And I'm like, "Oh, right, environment is everything." When you're traveling to and fro, no one wants to talk. And now I'm exactly the same. If you look at me like you want to talk to me, my heart sinks. I'm like, please don't. Don't talk to me. So I quickly learned that. And I just learned some of the rules. When it comes to racism or any of that sort of stuff, I came from South Africa.
True.
Right? So, and I'm not trying to downplay anything, but when people talk about racism here, and I'm from South Africa, it's just chalk and cheese to me. I'm like, oh, someone looked at you weird. Is that what you're saying was racist? Like, and I'm just like, bro, in South Africa, racism looks very different. It's all up in your face. It can affect your actual quality of life, like just in general.
In what ways?
Well, in terms of like, in South Africa, you still do get like certain jobs. For example, if you're black, you're viewed as someone who's more likely to steal. So there's certain areas being black where I'd be nervous to walk down simply because, especially if it's at night and I'm walking, because I know that everyone's like, oh, this guy's probably going to do something or whatever. Yeah. Or if you're a certain part of the country, you can actually get beat up if you're in the wrong area, and this goes both ways, I think, for both black and white people respectively. Like, if you're white, you probably are a target for people trying to take your stuff. So, and the way South Africa is structured, it's still super racially divided. So everything has some sort of racial tension attached to it. Race is like a gaping, festering wound that has not been healed, and it stinks. It's everywhere. It's people get killed because of it, right? And then I moved to Finland, a society who themselves have been oppressed by the Russians, the Swedish people. They, I don't know how Finnish people would just be like, yeah, we've been oppressed, now we are racist ourselves. Like, I think Finnish people in general they're very protective of their culture. I think you can so easily misinterpret someone protecting a sort of culture vibe and comparing that to racism or whatever. Like, for example, going to an area and not knowing how to speak Finnish. And some people maybe don't want to vibe with that. Like, they just like, yeah, I don't want to speak English. Or,
and there's a pretty substantial minority that don't speak English at all.
Yeah, true.
Finland.
True, especially when you go to certain areas. So there is that. And, you know, I guess I am a very charitable person. If I'm sitting in a bus and someone looks at me like this, the first thought in my head is not, oh, it's because I'm black. Like, I just don't know how you are able to quantify that. I'm not saying, dear viewer, that there is no racism. I'm saying, like, I just feel like it's very hard to kind of quantify it, at least for me personally. So my experience here, I haven't felt discriminated against. I haven't felt like people have not wanted to hang out with me or whatever, or not want to give me a job because I'm black or anything like that. I do remember this one time though, where I was sitting in a bar and I was just having a beer, and this white guy walks in and sits down opposite me. And I'm just sitting there, and he's like, and I was on a phone call, and in the call, I was like, what's up, man? And he looked at me, I was like, bro, do you have any weed?
Damn.
The most racist thing I've ever experienced.
Well, did you?
I did not, no. But so like,
you were stereotyped incorrectly.
Yeah. I was
traumatizing.
Terrible stuff, right?
How you recovered from it? Hardly, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to read some Viktor Frankl to just be able to, you know,
get through the suffering,
to push through that. And I think that would be my message for anyone coming here from some sort of a country that's very different to here is, if you are respectful, even if you don't know the language, if you're respectful, you treat people with kindness, you try and learn the ways of the people, I'd say 99% of the time you'll get by just fine. Yes, online there are some racist trolls, but if that's how you judge a whole society, you're tripping.
If you want to find nice people online, you're in the wrong place.
I have an unfinished idea I've had simmering for quite a while now, and I've never communicated it to you, Matti, either. Oh, no. But I'll just.
It was cooking in the background.
I'll just test it here. I also have to translate it from Finnish to English. Racism or unequal treatment based on your group identity, whatever it is in a linear relationship with how much in that society people can tell about you just based on that group identity characteristic. That is why, for example, London might be one of the least racist if you don't account for the very crime-infested areas. One of the most non-racist places on earth, because there's a million cultures that have just mixed together. People of all ethnicities work in all occupations. However, what runs London and Britain in general is class. It's so much more prevalent than we can, as Finns, even imagine. And people can pinpoint, and I'm not even kidding, people can pinpoint from your accent where you're from, how you've been brought up, what schools you went to, your family socioeconomic situation or background, and yeah, they can pinpoint you just based on the way you talk. That's why posh is such a big thing, because it's just how rich you are.
Whoa.
And that's what divides the society. So then there's a lot of prejudice between the classes, because that's how the society is structured. But there's not a lot of racism, because you can't, if there's a black guy, you don't know whether they're rich and posh. You'll know exactly, like in the first 2 seconds when they open their mouth, and what their mannerisms are and so on.
So interesting.
However, if a society is structured in a way where you can tell a lot about the person based on their ethnicity or their skin color or whatever, that society will end up with problems with racism then. But those are like equal. We're vilifying racism as a somehow separate worse thing than any other unequal treatment, which it just isn't. It's just prejudice all the same. And yeah, that's I think that's pretty interesting, and that's why I think, for example, meeting you, I couldn't tell anything about you when we first met. The first 5 minutes, I'm still figuring out what kind of a person is this. What are they doing?
Were you afraid I was going to rub you?
No, not at all.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I find it pretty preposterous to say that Finland would be like an extremely racist country.
Yeah.
And
But so you're saying it's the accuracy of stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We do tend to put more weight on certain types of discrimination than others. It's true. I mean, like you're saying, like, for example, in America right now, you can clearly see a lot of the issues are based on class and not race. Like a lot of some of the similar things are happening in America as well. It's like people who are poorer are the ones that are getting screwed over much more.
Yes.
You know, and but it's true. I think because racism, I mean, racism is bad. We all agree. And because of the history of it, I think people are all really jumpy about it. But it's true. So what would you propose? Like, would you say that we need to put a different lens as to how we view discrimination, or do we
I think it's an inescapable issue, just depending on what the problems with the current structure of society are.
Right.
However, our society is structured all around pretty well, so all of the problems are pretty small compared to, like, let's say, a very, very poor society that has an autocratic regime.
Right.
That's like shitty all around.
Yeah, but then racism being the kind of us vilifying racism can actually in Finland kind of be like, you know, fair enough, because racism can be one of the biggest issues we have.
Yeah.
If the other issues are so kind of watered down and the baseline for the quality of life is so high.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go out deep a little bit. When it comes to racism in Finland, I think it's a lot more complex. From what I have seen, the people who have issues with people from other countries, it usually has to do with people bringing their culture very strongly here. Like, for example, let's say people who come from Islamic countries, for example, they come here and they bring their ways and their vibe, right? And say laws start being made to kind of bend around that and accommodate them, whether it's right or wrong, whatever. I'm not talking about that. And I think when certain people begin to feel that they're, it's horrible to say. When certain people begin to feel like they're being invaded, that their culture is being diluted in some sort of way, and that people are coming and not accepting the culture that is here, their frustration against that is usually against, from what I've seen, against the culture of that. But it just so happens to be that a lot of the people that come from these cultures are a different color as well on top of that, which just, I think, so then you'll be like, hey, that's racist. And then once you actually talk to the person, you're like, oh, I don't care what color he is.
Yeah.
I just want to feel like people coming here are trying to integrate and are actually cognizant of our ways and our values. And I think certain religions do have values that do go completely against what Finnish people view as good and right. Like, you know, especially when it comes to women and that sort of stuff, because Finland is a very egalitarian country, you know, and I think, it's somewhere there, and then of course then people will be like, oh, is it Islamophobia or is it whatever? And there's no real good answer to that, but I do think that it's a little bit more nuanced. I'm sure there are people who are just like, yeah, that guy's black, so yes, I've got an issue with him.
Well, you know, the average IQ is at 100. Yeah, that's so half the population are below average IQ. So
really?
No,
yeah, well, that's the average.
Okay. It's a normal distribution. 100 is the mean, and then half of the population.
So it figures out you have some people who are completely out of their minds.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
that's true. But then again, like, I don't know. This will also sound horrible to some people, and I'm not as high in the oppression, you know, hierarchy, so I don't have the same shield here. But still, you have to somehow, even if you want to kind of embrace a very multicultural Finland, and you want to embrace the human rights for all. I think most people are for human rights for all.
We are as well.
Yeah, you have to still you have to be able to sympathize with the 40, 50-year-old Finn that has lived here for their entire lives, and they've, for example, gone to work in Helsinki, and they've taken the train to Helsinki every day of their career, and in the 80s, 90s, everyone in the train is Finnish. Everyone in the train is white. Everyone in the train speaks the language they do. Yeah. Now, if you take, the P train from Pasila to, go to Malminkartano or Myyrmäki, during work hours, yes, but, you take it at 11 p.m. during the night. Yeah. You can have, situations where most of the people in that train do not speak Finnish, are, different looking than you. You have to sympathize with the feeling of, there is something off here. There's something weird here.
Yeah, and the feeling of
not belonging in your own country
somehow being
almost.
replaced.
Yeah.
It's not completely unfounded. I've experienced. We take the P train very often.
Yeah.
Since our office is in Myyrmäki.
Right.
So yeah, well, yeah. Someone wants to find us now. But yeah,
I think also if we one step back to why we have vilified racism so much is that in our kind of it's a dumb way to clump the world, but in our Western world education, if you ask a person, you know, what's the worst thing that has ever happened to the humankind, they will, you know, mention some genocide. So Armenian genocide, you know, the slave trade, the United States, the Rwandan genocide, the Holocaust.
Right.
And those were all basically based on, well, the slave trade is just, it's a bit different, but mostly based on ethnicity.
Yeah.
But
even black people enslaved other black people.
I would argue the Atlantic slave trade was based on opportunity.
But then the treatment of the slaves in the United States after that based on ethnicity.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe if we knew a bit more about, for example, the Soviet Union, where there's, you know, we don't really know about genocides based on class. We only know about genocides based on ethnicity.
True.
We don't know about the gulags in Soviet Union or, you know, Mao's China.
No, it's very you're absolutely right. I think but then what is the solution? Like you were talking about
I would perhaps one of the reasons why we don't like to think about genocide based on class is because it's much harder to push aside. The thing is, in Mao's China, all of us three would probably have been informants.
Yeah.
We would have been informants to the government that would have led to executions.
Yeah.
Fuck. We're not inherently good people. No one is.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty tough lesson.
Yeah.
Because all of your goodness, it's in the palms of your hands.
Yeah.
You have absolute autonomy over you. And it's an unsettling thought. However, with racism, it's simple. Simple-minded people that didn't understand enough. That's why they treated them unequally. I'm not like them because I know more. Much easier.
Because we are so much more intelligent than the people in the 1700s and 1800s. Yeah. So
I would think that would be one of the reasons. Because it's how do you approach oppression in the Soviet Union? It's the one lesson you can learn from that. Let's say you read the Gulag Archipelago. It's a great book and everyone should read it. One of its biggest tenets is Soviet Union was not a solid institution that oppressed the people. The people oppressed themselves. The totalitarian institution was in everyone's head.
Right.
And that's how I don't know a way to, let's say, in schools try to teach that to people.
So are you saying that? Do you think the more meaningful discrimination in our world today is divided along the lines of class? And would you say, like, if you were tasked with focusing on one thing, would you focus on the discrimination between classism, or like you obviously saying that racism is like the easiest thing that people do? It's like nice and quick. So would you actually focus more on like, hey, actually the real problem is the difference between the rich and the poor?
Well, if I had answers to that, I think the world would be really, all the problems would be fixed easily because I'm just a 22-year-old idiot.
No, it is quite interesting because there's all of these questions.
May I go on?
Oh yeah. Sorry, were you
however,
going? Yeah.
I think the answer to that is pretty quick. I wouldn't say classism, but if you just played the lottery, or let's say let's play a game. Try to guess the net worth of an individual. What's the biggest predictor? Well, it's the country you're born into.
Yes.
That's like the country you're born into, I think determines it's something like 98.5% of your the projected net worth of the individual. Imagine that.
That is crazy.
So it might have gone down.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point still stands.
It's a big predictor.
Yeah, it's a huge predictor, and it has little to do with ethnicity. It has, but if I would say it's just a lot more. It's too complex of an issue to start to discuss the thing globally.
I want you guys to steel man the argument that that in fact the culture isn't as important. It's actually better for us to all just view each other as humans and create some sort of like the way Greta Thunberg was kind of viewing that. I want you to steel man that argument for me. Say you believed it. How would you go around trying to defend that view of it? That actually perhaps culture is something that divides us more than whatever.
I think you can pretty easily go for the route that as humans and as people, there are good people, there are bad people. Well, most of us are probably have both of them inside of us.
Right.
But after all, as humans, we all have some, something that makes us human. We have humane values. If 99.9% of us walks down the street and, you see a crying baby on the street, you'll probably pick it up and try to, deliver it to someplace safe. You'll probably try to care for it. Now, let's say you live in a society that is ultra hyper ethno-nationalistic. You have, for example, culture that is divided based on your ethnicity.
Yeah.
You might actually develop a way of thinking for people that leads to a person, knowing nothing. Baby is probably the most kind of innocent thing you can have.
Yeah.
You can develop a way of thinking where some person might walk down the street and think, good, that person is of an inferior, presence just because of their ethnicity.
Right.
I will not help that, or I will do something even worse.
Yeah.
And that's something only, ethno-nationalistic culture can do, because that's the only thing you can make out of a baby. Like, what's its skin color?
Yeah.
Or, what's its sexism, or whatever.
Well, I have two arguments or two sort of ideas with trying to steelman a cosmopolitan or a very low resolution of humankind, which is quite hard, because if you just try any low resolution idea, reality strikes in and it doesn't work.
The practicalities of it. Yeah.
That's why only young people usually have low resolution ideas, because then reality comes in and then
you're doing a good job.
However, I really like this quote from Slavoj Žižek. Genocide has never happened without poetry.
Genocide has never happened without poetry.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Okay.
And the idea is, if you start creating ideas that are somehow pin us against each other, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to do.
Right. And
I would see that as a case for cosmopolitanism, because if that's the case, if the case is that we're really easy, people are, and we're very tribalistic. If that's the case, then you should try to fight against it, which would then make you a cosmopolitan because you're pushing against tribalism.
Right.
So that would perhaps be a case for cosmopolitanism in a pretty like pragmatic sense. Then I had this other idea that came to me first. It goes something, you should become a podcaster. You're now interviewing us, which is really interesting. Switching the dynamic.
Yeah.
Matti sort of already touched upon this, but there are times. For example, our ozone layer was we were going to lose it.
Yeah.
A few decades back, and that would have destroyed everything. UV radiation would have just killed everything. End of life as we know it.
Yeah.
Society comes together, decides, let's not use those aerosols anymore. Let's actually start fixing it. Now we're like 85% there, 90% there. I don't know the exact number, but things are pretty good.
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan action. So during times of crisis, and the more absolute, the better in this case, we have a tendency to throw our prejudice out of the window for the common good. So finding those, and that's why politics is so often also focusing on crisis, because it breaks the smaller tribes and brings them together.
Right.
And that's how you can get a large following.
Fair.
That's why we focus on crisis. So crisis may have an effect of bringing people together. That would be perhaps another case.
So the more developed the world becomes, during the more severe the crisis, we always tend towards cosmopolitanism.
Perhaps, yeah.
To like fix something, like if an alien invasion happened now, we would. I don't care what skin color you are.
Or
you're human.
Take the rifle. Let's fucking go. Yeah.
Or like something like a sunburst.
Yeah. But it almost feels like to get back to the other side of it now. It almost feels like we can only maintain that for short periods of time.
Yeah, it's
like a
the spirit of entropy comes.
Yeah.
And having any sort of large structure, it's always breaking down.
Yeah.
The society is like it's like a cookie dough.
Yeah.
You have to always be pushing it to the form, and then it just comes back down and everything's shit again, and then you have to
Then should we not I mean, I guess this is another way to take this, is that, do you think that humanity, that we would all be better if we all began to be a bit more spiritual, a bit more the fact that this is just a body? Do you think that if humanity together began to start valuing the more spiritual aspects of who we are, like the ancients did this, it seems to be ingrained in us.
Yeah, but the ancients weren't really cosmopolitan.
The
tribes killed the other tribes.
Fair. This is
day in, day out. But
this is very true. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to is that, do you think that if humanity, because now we have like a massive global system, we hopefully, I was just about to say, we're not going around killing each other, and I was like, actually, but do you think if we all took more of that approach, do you think that would be better for the world? or do you think it's too vague and just something you can't really grab your hand on?
Well, in our context, obviously, in our personal, at least in our personal Finnish context,
society,
where we are, living on the highest highs of this individualistic hedonistic dream.
Yeah.
Where
And
I need to
so well.
I need to focus on myself, and I need to focus on getting the nice things for me, and my pleasure needs to come first.
It's very Western.
You're very low tier pleasure. Like if I want my absolute pleasure to come first always, I'll just get an automatic flashlights that's pumping 24/7, and then how happy am I? Aarni had an imagery of peeing on his floor in the last episode. So now I decided to take the part of having an absolutely grotesque image in your heads.
We have a crisis of meaning in the developed Western world because we lack a common story that ascends our own small lives. Because a small life, there are great people, great men in the men as a human that have an effect on the whole society, but that's always a 1 in a million.
Right.
And for some reason we're thinking that everyone can be that 1 in a million.
Yeah.
But only 99% point. Yeah. People that's an impossible dream. So perhaps here we could do with a story that ascends our own small circles. However, I don't think spirituality would have any effect with decreasing wars or suffering or racism or any sort of
I think we are decreasing those with
treatment.
I think
I'm with Slavoj Žižek on this one. It's religion is also one of those stories.
It is.
It's poetry you can use for whatever the purpose is. And the funniest example he has is from with Buddhism, for example. The idea is you're the leaf in the wind, but that's okay. You can just let go and enjoy the ride because you can't affect the wind. Just go on, enjoy life, and do what you can.
Right.
And he tells it, of course, much better than I do. But I have this knife in my hand, and the universe is just directing me, and then which is I think it's pretty true, yeah. I think it's a nice analogy of how you can use the idea of forces stronger than you acting upon you for bad. So no, I don't think if we were just a bit more spiritual, all the wars would end. Absolutely 100% certain.
Well, of course, we've been there. We've seen that.
Yeah.
But I think we can very much, if you wanted to prophesize about a ideal society or an ideal world in the future where we can, the issues of war and, discrimination and racism, I think we can raise the baseline high enough for them to be very much non-factors. Right. Just by increasing the quality of life for everyone.
Yeah.
But after then, do we create the same crisis of meaning for everyone? If, for example, AI can do 99% of our jobs.
Right.
And quality of life has to account for the spiritual quality of life.
But I mean, like meeting the very base standards of life.
Yeah.
And then can we use spirituality? Yeah, time to answer.
No, I'm just
once.
I'm just quite intrigued by this idea that a lot of the shit that happens in the earth is driven by selfishness, self-gain, things that you want to do for yourself or for your country, and everyone else can just kick the bucket, right? I'm not saying that the world would just, I am saying that the world would change in some way if selfishness was not the main thing. And how do you get to a place where being selfish isn't the main thing, where it's about the common man, the common good? How do you get to that place? Like what is that just something that shouldn't even try and be injected into, I guess, into our culture in general? Like, because if each person was, if everyone, and I know this is airy fairy stuff. This isn't. Yeah. I'm not making a proper argument with this, but if in general people were more willing to, because in a society we are actually in a social contract. When you are in someone's presence, whether you believe it or not, for a little moment, that person that you say hello to or speak to is your responsibility in terms of the impression you leave on someone will indirectly or directly affect them to leave an impression on someone else. And
a butterfly effect. Yeah.
And so it goes. If everyone had this idea or this feeling of like, hey, I have more power than I think I do. The things that I say with my mouth and the way I act does have an actual tangible effect on the world around me.
Infinite effect.
Yeah, exactly. And if we grew up being taught that we are not helpless, that we are here, and I don't know how else that would be injected into humanity outside of, like, I guess, some pseudo spiritual aspect, or perhaps it will just be like a logical way of thinking, being like, hey, listen, when you go out into the world, every little affects other people. So I just think, I don't know how that would be implemented, but I do think that something like that would actually, I think it would have the biggest change.
Go for it.
Coming back to Jordan Peterson for the third time.
I think we're closing the loop.
Yeah. There was a really interesting Q&A once, and it there was a question, why do you always talk about cleaning your room? There are bigger issues than that. And why don't we focus on the bigger issues? Because they're creating so much suffering. Why do I have to clean my room? Why do I have to be nice to my parents and so on? And he lays it out so nicely. The idea is, exactly what you just proposed. Let's say you convince one person of the idea in a way that the person understands it as well. And the person then tells 5 others, and they change their mind as well. And those 5 others tell 5 others. Takes like 4 rotations, and you have the entire world.
So
you've changed the mind of the entire world.
So true.
With one argument. So the entirety of human society is structured in a way that all changes are always exponential. That's why you always have to focus on the next small incremental step, because every incremental step is part of an exponential equation. And you can't get to the end of the equation without taking the incremental steps. But the incremental steps feel meaningless if you don't know that it's exponential.
Yep.
I'm not making a change. Yes, you are. You just don't know or don't understand that you're at the beginning of the
you don't see
exponential
the
change.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's an idea that you can communicate to people. People just, it's not a common understanding yet, I've found out. most people feel helpless in
Right.
their situation. I can't change my life, and for the love of God, I can't change the society I'm in.
Yeah.
But life is very easy to see as a linear thing.
Yeah.
Right. And plus, I feel like this message, this sort of, if all of us started taking this posture, I feel like it could cross over even into religions. I think most religions out there, no matter what they believe, I feel like in a lot of them, there is a golden thread throughout is, you know, you're a human. There's something bigger than you.
Yes.
And love is cool. Like, you know, so I think that's not very hard to push into, like it could cross different religions. And it's like, imagine if people raising their children, and then now it comes to like families. Yeah, I guess you can always go further and further. And then it comes to families where, imagine in families, the way you raise your kids is in the same sort of thing. The way you live your life, you teach your kid. Your kid grows up, starts a social media account, starts speaking about this stuff. And it just, I feel like, I don't think it's anything that we can implement a law around, but it has to be the collective human consciousness. We all have to somehow understand that if we come together, if we want to really, if we want the world to be a better place, and of course in combination with laws and policies and whatever, but like if everyone just had that same sort of mindset, I do think a lot of issues would be better. And you know, the thing that annoys me is some of the people who are preaching and speaking about, I don't know, things that are happening in the world, like, I don't know, people getting paid low wages. You'll see someone on Instagram, getting paid low wages. But that same person will go to a restaurant and treat the waiter terribly. I'm like, you are going completely against your whole
Exactly.
thing. You know, you talk about climate change, like cut fossil fuels completely. Do you understand that doing that in one go would kill millions of people, billions of people, and that you actually, that it's not so simple, it's not so black and white, and it's deeper than this, hey, we need to do this. Like some of these, I've seen it in the UK, there's these just stop oil people. Number one, they block the roads, so the cars stop and are still running, so they're using up more gas. Number two, there's people who are in a rush, people who have to get to work.
Ordinary people just living ordinary lives.
Ordinary people. I feel like that just goes against everything that you're preaching. There isn't consistency in thought. Like, and I just feel like if we brought it back to the individual level, you want to do a change with climate and whatever, why don't you stop driving? If this is like something
if
that
it's so clear to you,
if it's so clear to you, then convince other people. Well,
I have a really interesting example of, or it's an interesting counter argument to the basic idea of sociology, which is almost the entirety of your life can be determined by your societal surroundings. They shape you, and it's from a prison psychiatrist who had a very long career. I think something like 35 years.
Wow!
So he had an estimated, I think, 50,000 patients, which is an unimaginable number.
Right.
And yes, almost all of them, and this was decades ago.
Right.
So London was a gang-ridden place. There were whole areas that were just really fucking poor, and if you were born into that neighborhood, there was basically no way out. Almost no one got out. and those were the people who ended up in prison. So okay, sociology was right. The thing he always told to his patients, because he said that almost all of the inmates tried to toy with the idea that, you know, maybe I'm a criminal because my dad beat me and we were always poor, and maybe I have these problems because my family background was so bad and all my friends were violent and so on. You know what he answered? It's because you're lazy and stupid. To all of them. And you know what happened? They felt relieved because he gave them their autonomy back.
Amazing.
Don't follow the story that you're shaped by surroundings and suddenly you're not.
Amazing.
But if you don't have that idea in your head that I can actually shape my surroundings and the idea of this exponential change, then it will never happen. Everyone will be completely shaped by their surroundings, and they will not ascend whatever is their position in society. And I think that was really fucking powerful. Yeah,
that is powerful.
And it was just so funny. It was so simple. His response. So yeah,
that is really cool, because I can imagine the relief of feeling like, oh, actually, it's not something that is outside of my country. In Finland, do you guys have some sort of, in school, do you have some sort of life module or something, like some sort of, in South Africa, we would have these, like in high school, what do they call it? Life orientation.
I think we have it as an alternative if you don't want to do, or if your parents don't want you to do, usually we have religious studies.
We have school and career orientation lessons, and then we also have religion, or then like life spirituality. I don't know what they do there.
I'm not sure. I think they just play games or something. But then again, fair enough. That's probably a good thing to do.
They're
right.
Kids. Yeah.
I wonder, is there any example of any country that tries to, I don't know, no, there probably isn't a school that, or a country that tries to take this model of, I don't know, I guess, teaching critical thinking in school and being able to, understand your own emotions, like some of these things that we're talking about, and that you actually do have power over your choices. Like, for example, in the States, I don't know too much about the whole critical race theory or whatever. It's really confusing, but some of the arguments against that is teaching Black people that, hey, yeah, you're probably pretty fucked because you're Black in general. And that's kind of the message that
critical theories are theories that try to focus on a very specific issue in science and don't try to explain everything through a specific lens. They look at a very specific thing very critically. So critical race theory would then be applying your understanding or your theories of race to everything.
Right.
Or like critical supplements.
Theory.
Oh,
or
right.
like they're plugins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's a good way to
explain. And very
it.
interesting is that feminism is a critical theory.
Shit. What is
just one small lens to look at interactions through,
right,
or society or whatever issue?
Do you know, I haven't spent any time actually diving into feminism and trying to understand like properly. I mean, I get like very vague ideas about it. It's not something that I've actually spent time on. Would you mind just quickly, are you able to describe it in the way you understand it? Like, what if I were to ask you, what is feminism? How would you describe that?
I think Aarni wants to take this one.
Well, there are several levels where you could say there's a idealistic baseline feminism which would be then the most common answer, which is there should be an like equality between the sexes, equal treatment, and so on.
I disagree. I'm joking.
You were clipping that.
And fair enough.
Yeah.
However, you don't gain much from that idea. That's a nice idea, but how do you go on from there? If you look up books on, let's say, read bell hooks, for example, that would be books describing the experience of a certain group of women in society. So then I've gained so much insight from reading bell hooks.
Really?
Yeah, because
you need to give me a list of all these books you've been reading, man. Yeah.
It's just especially because it's from several decades ago from the US, where, let's say in the 40s, 50s, 60s, there was a huge disparity between how the sexes were treated.
Yeah.
So fair enough. It's very interesting to read about that.
Yeah.
And from reading those pretty extreme examples, let's say how differently men and women in a society like that approach sex or marriage or intelligence or emotions, or there are tidbits of information you can take to your own life, even though in Finland we live in pretty much the most egalitarian society in the world. So yeah, that would be then another more sophisticated type of feminism, which is understanding that the sexes have, largely speaking, different experiences, and you can gain from, because I'm not a woman, I've never, for example, been a neurotic person. For a very long time, I couldn't understand why people felt anxiety about problems, because I've basically never felt anxiety from problems in my life.
Really?
Yeah, it's just how I'm wired.
So then what are you? What happens? Do you just focus and deal with something, or do you?
I might be sad. I might be instantly anxious about stimulants. Let's say I get an angry message from a friend. Right. Of course I feel anxious. I'm a human.
Yeah.
However, usually bigger problems just push out of my head because I'm not a neurotic person.
Right.
So yeah, it's really good to learn about how people are different.
True.
Yeah.
Do you know there are sorry to take a little. Do you know that there are people who don't hear a voice in their heads?
Yeah.
Who are these people?
I don't think they're people.
Like
it's a pretty substantial amount.
Like it's
something like 10% or 12% of people don't have a inner monologue.
I think I was watching a video about this one lady who doesn't have an inner monologue, and when she reads, she doesn't, like, she's not reading the words. Yeah. She says that in her mind, it all kind of shows up, and it's almost like, I don't know how, her mind basically works like a computer. It's so weird. She was like, when she does a test or something where she has to do like multiple choices and whatever, she says she can literally look at it once and she can do things like super quickly, simply because she's not slowed down by the process of actually reading what's on the page. I don't even know how to properly explain it, but it's weird as hell.
My inner monologue while reading has disappeared completely as well.
Really? Do you just absorb?
I don't know. I read. The brain is a mystery, man.
Fair enough.
But it really slows you down. Of course, I can trigger it back. But when I really get into it, I just read. I don't listen to a voice in my head anymore.
God damn.
how do I stop listening to the voice in my head?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've been because I've been trying to get back into reading quite a bit. I used to read a lot. In fact, when I was younger, I hated reading, and I got in trouble at school because I apparently couldn't spell and I didn't read, and my parents were super upset. And then I picked up Harry Potter. And do you know that things shifted? I was starting to get in trouble for reading too much. Like, you know. And then I spent a lot of time reading tons of fantasy books. And then I moved on to self-help books, like a lot of them. And then like some Christian apologetics, and like used to read a bunch of C.S. Lewis. At some point. I mean, that's years ago, but I just remember that dude could write. And I don't know, I think something shifted when I moved here. Oh yeah, it was because access to English books are a little harder here. Like, yes, I can go to the library, but it's like a little section. I don't feel really free to be like, oh, what is this? Most of the time I'm like, wow. God.
Yeah, it's finished again.
Yeah. Wait, don't tell me I have to learn it now.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like that I took a dent in my reading because I used to, because when my parents used to go through really difficult times, I escaped through reading, and being in a library was like that was my
sanctuary.
Yeah. I would just sit there and I would have so much peace just reading. But now I'm finding it hard to read books just for knowledge. Like right now I'm reading about why it's called Guns, Germs and Steel. I've started reading it because I don't know, intrinsically I think a lot of people have this idea that African countries or other places developed differently because, and I'm not even joking, because of IQ. Like I made a video about it once when actually it's so much more nuanced and that sort of stuff. But anyway, I'm kind of trying to read that, but I find it so freaking difficult sometimes to sit down there and be like, okay, this is not a self-help book. This is not a fantasy story. This is pure, just like I'm learning.
Well, have you tried? Maybe the book is just not interesting.
Yeah, maybe change your perspective, because if there is not just learning. If you learn things that are interesting, they fit into a story, a map that then interests you.
True.
And it doesn't have to be Fantasyland, because reality is actually much more interesting.
It sounds like sounds like you're maybe treating reading as a means to an end instead of an end in itself.
True.
And people seem to have a guilt about reading.
Yeah.
They like somehow.
If you buy a book, you need to read it before buying the next book.
Yeah, and somehow like spending hours reading would make you an instantly better person, which it doesn't.
True. Maybe there are some unhealthy views about it, but I do think that I have in my head. But I mean, that book is really cool, though. I'm not. I am actually really enjoying it because it's kind of crazy coming from Africa. I can't believe how some of these preconceived ideas are actually in the back of my head without knowing it. Like without knowing it, I was like, why has certain places in Africa just turned out to be shitholes, and like Europe, they had freaking ships and stuff, and we were like, you know, like doing other stuff. But once I started getting into it and realizing, number one, there have been many massive cultures and stuff in Africa. That's number one. And also,
you guys had ships as well.
yeah. And also just I just found out like the coastline, the way the coastline is shaped. There isn't a single river that goes from sub-Saharan Africa all the way down to the south with where a ship can go all the way through. When you look at Europe, you know, like there's so much space for ships to go, and there's so many areas that create like natural harbors and stuff. So, and like little things like that, things like the types of animals that could be domesticated, and how humans evolve and with the environment, like the environment plays a massive role as to how they evolve. And I was never taught that in school. I was taught that Africa, the only reason Africa battled is just because of slavery. Like we were never, I was never taught about Mansa Musa. He's literally
the richest guy ever
ever exist. Like that brother went to Mecca, right? And he went through Egypt, and he gave away gold and caused inflation.
Destroyed the economy.
Like, you know, why did I never know about that guy? Like, I don't know. But anyway, rant over.
There was a very interesting Kanye West rant there. I remember Kanye West mentioning Mansa Musa like 100 times in an interview. It's a very, very interesting thing, because I was like 20 or 19 when I was first introduced to the idea of like large historical processes shaping the world today. Which was basically, it was pretty easy to farm in Europe. Europe had big mammals that were easy to domesticate. And that's why Europe developed a bit faster than everyone else. And that's why we made the larger ships that could then sail the seas. And then there's this thing called germs. Which you then bring and then...
and you get from the domesticated animals, and then you go to a different place and it decimates a whole population.
Exactly.
Quick one, I'm just quite interested. Do you guys have any small little theories that I guess could be considered a conspiracy theory? It could be about the world or whatever. Something that you personally believe might be true in your own mind. Do you have anything like that? And if you do,
I do.
I want to hear
That's
it.
the wrong question to ask us.
Okay, I'll just embarrass myself very quickly.
All right. Don't pick save something for me.
Well, I wouldn't say I believe this, but I'm very fond of the idea that the reason why almost all cultures really like trolls, giants, goblins, and so on, is because, well, first of all, it doesn't take that many centuries or millennia for all of society to just all little artifacts, even the smallest ones, to just decay due to erosion. So it's pretty possible there has been civilizations before our current iteration.
Don't you dare touch my theory. But anyway, continue.
You have the Atlantis one.
What if we've had different species of human, some giant, some
you're going far
looking
afield
like
with this
goblins, some dwarves in the mines in the mountains, and all of these different societies, having their own strengths and weaknesses. But then this very general human comes, but they can like organize so well, they take over, and that's why we have all those stories. I really like that idea.
That's really nice. How about you?
No, you go first.
My one is similar but different. Is the fact that humanity's growth and evolution is not as linear as we previously thought, and a lot of some of these ancient structures that let's go to Egypt, for example. One thing I've been kind of looking at is in Egypt, you can quite clearly see that there's two different industries at play.
Oh, yeah.
There's literally
fucking bad drawings on giant structures.
what the heck is going on there? And also, I was watching this one video. They've got these pre-dynastic older.
Yeah.
The dynastic jars, you got these clay jars. They're beautiful in their own way, but you can clearly see it was made by hand or whatever. And then you got these pre-dynastic jars, not made of clay, but made of like granite and corundum, some of the hardest stones we have. Not only that, I watched the video where they finally, they use CNC machinery to measure it, like to measure exactly and compare whatever. The numbers that came back from this, and this isn't some conspiracy theory or whatever, these are actual engineers looking at this. So they look at this and they say, listen, this thing is almost perfect. Like we today would battle to make this. And then they took it even further. A mathematician took the jar and he did all these numbers and all this sort of stuff. And his statement was pretty wild because when he did these maths things, he was able to break down the jar into like an equation that you could literally input into a computer and it would make the jar, right? And he said that it is for this thing to be have been made by accident. He said there's more chance of a universe being born out of my nose, like, you know. And he was saying the only thing we humans know, where you take an equation and you put it into something and it creates something, the only thing we know that does that accurately are computers. That's the only thing that we know that can do that. So now the question is, these people who apparently didn't even have the wheel, they used copper, which is like a 4 or 5 on the scale of hardness. I don't know. We're able to cut things that we don't know how to do. Like we would literally battle. And not to mention that the way we would try and make that, you would need some sort of wheel thing to
make a round structure.
And it's not only that. You see these discrepancies all across the planet. So anyway, I'm very fond of the idea. I feel like it will change the way humanity views itself.
The remnants from the earlier civilizations with the giants and the goblins. And
Right. I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna first substitute that, and then add that, and then because it's not completely a new thing, I'll add 1 or 2, very listener friendly and easy conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So first of all, what you said and what Aarni said, in connection to the entire, Sahara Desert being a rainforest around 12,000 years ago, and the very same structures being found there.
The Eye of Sahara.
Yeah, for example, the Eye of Sahara, and I don't have enough of it in my recollection to give a very good story of it, but Aarni probably remembers it. Some Greek philosopher or
the dude who spoke about Atlantis.
Yeah.
Solon.
Yeah, there are several. The only problem is that in the Fire of Alexandria, almost all of the recollections have.
But who basically went to wherever the Eye of Sahara is and was told there that here is the city. The city looks like this. I was like, well, there was the city and the city looked like this.
Yeah.
And it was like half made of gold and
crazy
whatever. And then they find some of the biggest gold mines from near the Eye of Sahara, and
Shit.
but that's why I decided to add 2 more easy conspiracy theories, because you understand that was pretty
It's a huge rabbit hole to
yeah,
go
yeah,
into.
yeah. It
we
is.
need it's like
It needs its own video.
yeah, it's
probably.
not 1, it's 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, and don't mix von Daniken and the aliens behind Christianity into that, because it actually ties into it pretty well.
Oh,
But
snap.
Easy conspiracy theories, which might be a good note to end on.
Yeah.
I'll introduce 2. One has Osama bin Laden, and another has Hitler.
Okay.
And
tell
Hitler
us.
one I know less about, so it's easier to go through. But you know how
The Hitler one is good.
yeah. How when the Allied and the Soviets were advancing towards Germany,
Yeah.
and the Soviets got to Berlin first,
Yes.
and allegedly Hitler killed himself in a bunker,
Yeah.
or shot himself, or took acid or whatever, and then the Soviets allegedly took the body back to Soviet Union, although we have Hitler's body, but no photographs, no evidence, nothing. Up until maybe like I don't know how many tens of years later it was, but when they finally agreed to release a sample of the skeleton remains they had. They took the sample and had it tested, and it was a female.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not a conspiracy theory. It's a that's fact. Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to react to that one. Okay, what's the next one?
Yeah, well,
What was
the
last-
next one is actually a conspiracy theory. Arni was right. Arni was right. That wasn't really a conspiracy theory, but you can make a lot of conspiracy theories from that. Well, this is so fucking stupid.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good.
During the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound,
Yeah.
well, of course, the guy allegedly went to a room and saw Osama bin Laden and shot him dead on the spot.
Yeah.
And then they took Osama bin Laden with the body, of course, with them to I think they had some special permit from maybe Pakistan to fly to initiate the operation from the Pakistan airspace. I might get the country completely wrong, but that doesn't really matter here.
Right.
But they took it back to the air base, where they somehow identified it as the correct Osama bin Laden, and then for whatever reason, for a religious reason or something, they flew in the middle of the Indian Ocean and
chucked it in.
Yeah. Decided to dump the body in the Indian Ocean. And of the body of Osama bin Laden, there's also never been a single picture. And there was even, I think.
So do you reckon it wasn't? If you were to bet your life on it,
well, what do I get in return?
you get to live.
Yeah.
Like someone's like, if you're right that it was Osama bin Laden, you get to live.
No.
No. Why would I chuck it into the ocean with no pictures ever being released?
Yeah, what was the
just
point
one
of that?
guy telling everyone, I killed him, man. I promise. And he's made a really good career from just speaking about his experiences, like 5 books and all the podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there was something else with, like the first a picture being released and a picture of that they claimed was a picture of dead Osama bin Laden.
Right.
And it might have even been published. Maybe it was only published by, a leak to a newspaper, maybe by the government. I don't believe by the government because it would be too bad. Probably only through a leak to a newspaper, but then that photo was later proven as fake.
Right. All right.
There's too many question marks.
I don't know that sort of stuff. The thing that frustrates me about it, because unlike the stuff we're talking about, like going back in the past, there are people who know the truth that are chilling, probably eating right now or relaxing. There are people who actually know
but
what's
don't
going
you
on.
then, at least for me, that
I have a
creates
third conspiracy theory.
I'll just explain this. That at least in me, it sparks like a drive to one day be at those tables.
Oh
and then
yeah, I
decide on
get
it.
you.
Because it's just most people just want to live their life in peace and not know too much because it might be dangerous for you. I don't think
So would you want to know the deepest, darkest secrets of humanity, like ones that might, like,
Yeah, of course.
would you?
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking about the level of stuff where you actually find out there's actually something in the water.
Yeah, sure.
that
Sure.
is-
Lizard people, I don't know.
They're
Whatever
making the
it is.
frogs gay.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Oh
You
my-
just
Hey, yo,
exposing fetuses or almost any sort
Oh,
of
no.
early
Goodbye to our Spotify rankings. Yeah. Getting bad, bro.
Yeah, but if you expose like a child in in a womb to just enough estrogen, they'll just become female.
I can see in both of your eyes, you guys are like, oh.
But the frogs don't become gay. The frogs become female. That's the thing.
Or just,
Alex
or
Jones
just
was
sterile.
wrong. Yeah. Low enough dosage, they become sterile. High enough dosage, they become female.
Yeah. Not gay. Clear, important distinction here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like because there is a lot of stuff. I will just say to quickly.
No, go.
I will say that there are a lot of very frank discussions that are incredibly uncomfortable that need to be had. Like, the ones where even for questioning, you just completely cut out of society. You know, like there's so many
Bring
things
it
like
on.
that. Yeah.
That's another episode.
No, not now. But that's I live off of that.
Yeah.
I want to do that. That's what I want to do in my life.
Yeah. Because that's why I like even in the American race right now, like listening to someone like RFK Jr.
Yeah.
My guy knows, like, yo, he's not afraid to say shit, right?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he knows something about his uncle.
Oh, yeah, like honestly, like, but there are some of these discussions.
He's one of
where,
those guys who are hard now walking and sleeping or eating or whatever. That know shit that we don't. Yeah. And shit that we'll never know.
Yeah, might not be walking for long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just find those, I think there are some discussions that are really difficult. Like, for example, in America, why are black people like 13% of the population and yet cause like 50% of the crime, whatever? You know, that's a difficult discussion. It's like, I think we all agree that we don't believe a certain skin color just makes you inherently more violent. But then you break that down and you're like, what are the family structures like? What are where are these people living? What are they being taught and whatever? And I feel like even discussions like that, you could be completely shut down when those discussions
Need to be had.
to be had, because it's like, yo, like, how do you, like, it's right in front of you there. Anyway, but yeah.
I want to ask. This is, I'm not sure where I heard this, but this is the best podcast question you can ask, I think.
Okay.
And this is why I want to ask you this. Maybe to end this.
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
It's Friday. It's getting late.
Yeah. What time is this?
It's Aarni's bedtime.
Yeah. My phone actually, like an hour ago. Yeah.
But the question was, what is the biggest mindset kind of shift or change that you have had to make recently?
My biggest mindset change. Mindset change.
Yeah.
That I've had to make recently. That's I see, I can smell that's a very podcast question. It's like peak podcast. I think I guess I would have to say the biggest mindset change would be that no one actually knows anything. Like, no one actually, we can talk politics and whatever, but in the grand scale of things, in terms of meaning, purpose, living your life and whatever, everyone's got their own subjective view of things, but everyone still makes dumb decisions.
Yep.
And people in power who used to view as like, oh, they're in power, are actually just as fallible, just as confused. They also wake up feeling shitty.
Yeah.
And because of that, the only person who truly matters when it comes to creating purpose is me. And
for you, and then for everyone else, it's themselves.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully the way I focus on me has a positive effect to bring it full circle, on the people that I encounter, because they are my responsibility for that moment. And then we create a butterfly effect that goes around the world, and everyone starts cleaning their rooms, and next thing we all sing Kumbaya and float into the heavens with the aliens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's the perfect way to end the podcast.
It's a good episode.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, fuck. How long was this?
Yksin